Welcome back to our back-to-back conversations with the two Republican candidates for governor who will be appearing on your ballot on September 6th, or perhaps you already have it at home if you're voting by mail. Joining us now, the other Republican candidate, Geoff Diehl of Whitman. He served 8 years in the Massachusetts House before leaving in 2017 to run for the U.S. Senate, and he joins us here today. Geoff, welcome.
Hey, thanks, John, for having me.
So what makes you a better nominee for the Republicans than Chris Doty?
Well, I think there's a combination. First of all, I served in the legislature for 8 years, served on the Ways and Means Committee for 4 of those years, had a chance to get to know exactly how our state spends its money, talked with all those agency folks about the successes they have, the areas of improvement. That plus the fact that I have private sector experience as well. My wife and I own a small business together. Like my opponent, have a small business, but I've also worked in the manufacturing sector as a sales representative for years before I got into the state legislature. I was 40 years old when I ran for a state rep for the first time. So, you know, a lifetime of, I think, experiencing what it's like to have private sector and government experience, I think, is the best model for going into the corner office.
He claims you're unelectable.
Yeah, you know what? Let's see what happens on September 6th. So far, he's got an 0-1 record at the convention. I think I beat him 71-29. So that claim, of course, is going to come from any challenger.
So if former President Trump runs for president again, would you support him?
Yeah, I mean, look, he's endorsed me in this race, and I think we had 4 great years under his administration. So, yeah, I definitely would support his candidacy if he decides to run. Obviously, we're still not sure what's going on there. DeSantis seems to be making noises about running too. Kristi Noem came in to support me here in Massachusetts a couple weeks ago. She seems to be in the mix for maybe running for president or vice president. So obviously the field's not set yet, but yeah. You know, the president, I supported him in 2016. I think we had success under his 4 years, and I would anticipate that if he decides to run, that might be a decision I'd make.
But okay, but you are open to other candidates, or
no,
not if he runs?
If he runs, I'm with him.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit about wages here in Massachusetts. Right now, the minimum wage is $14.25 an hour. In your view, is that too high, too low, or just right?
You know what, John? Does it even matter when the federal government continues to print more money and create this inflationary pressure on our economy? What is the dollar worth anymore at this point? You know, obviously right now in Massachusetts, we had 50,000 people leave our state because of affordability issues. Whether it's what they're earning or whether it's the high cost of housing, we need to find ways to alleviate pressure on that. But the federal government continuing to just spend trillions of dollars and devalue the dollar ends up making the dollar less valuable to begin with.
Well, as governor, you don't have much control over that, but you do have some input on things like the minimum wage. Would you like to see that raised, lowered?
Well, I think the other thing, too, is the free market helps determine what the best wages should be. I think the minimum wage has always been intended to be an entry-level starting wage. Most 80%, I think, of people on minimum wage get off of it after the first year once they're staying with a job or not. So, again, I think the goal here is to grow businesses and increase the revenue for businesses so they can hire more people and then ultimately give those people those full-time jobs that pay better.
Well, clearly one issue that's on the minds of a lot of voters here and across the country is abortion rights. What, if any, steps, if you're elected, would you take to change the abortion laws here in Massachusetts?
Yeah, so I want to protect life wherever I can. I think that's, I'm on record with that. But as people, I think, do know, too, in Massachusetts, the governor doesn't make law, you execute law. The legislature is made up and composed of people who decided that they would enact the Roe Act as a proactive measure against Roe v. Wade going away, which it ultimately did. And even Governor Baker, I think, objected to certain sections of the Roe Act, which I agree with him on. I think there's some elements of late-term abortion where a child survives an abortion and is allowed to expire on the table. That, to me, is too radical. So I would hope that we could make find common ground that that's no longer part of that law.
How about parental consent? Do you think could you see yourself trying to tweak the laws around that?
You know, that's the other thing. I've got 2 daughters, and it certainly concerns me to think that at as young an age as 16, I might not even know if my daughter is having that. I think that parental consent should be, you know, also part of that modification, like Governor Baker.
We're under a minute here, Geoff.
Okay.
I do want to sneak in one more issue. It's very important, and it's housing. What, if anything, would you do as governor to curb the pervasive NIMBYism, not in my backyard, that suppresses the construction of affordable housing?
Great question. You know, I think Governor Baker's done a good step of trying to create that affordable housing, multi-unit projects near transportation hubs. Yeah. I think that's a great idea. We want to continue with that. I think what we need to do is actually continue expansion of transportation around the state to make sure we can unlock more parts of the state for affordable housing. But like you say, there's a lot of NIMBYism, and that goes for a lot of things. Mental health and drug recovery, I think, needs to be pushed into the suburbs. Creating more affordable housing, again, I agree. We can get into certain areas of communities that have plenty of land still available.
So you think maybe cracking down on these communities?
Well, it's not so much cracking down. I think doing things like brownfield redevelopment, like the state investing in helping. My town has a brownfield right next to a train station. If the state comes in with their funds and cleans that up, then let's do a trade-off, an incentive to develop that and create that. I think a lot of towns have projects like that where we can incentivize unlocking housing opportunities.
If people want to find out more about the Diehl campaign, how do they do that?
They go to geoffdiehl.com, and my mom decided to make my life interesting. So Geoff is with a G, G-E-O-F-F, D-I-E-H-L.com is my website.
Do you wish it were J-E-F-F?
Look, it's gotten me this far, so I guess it is what it is.
Geoff, thanks for coming in.
Thank you, John.
Good luck to you.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us.
Very good.